How's it going, everybody? This is the Stimulus Check Hub here to give you your daily stimulus check and unemployment benefits updates and the latest information. If you are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. A like and a comment are always appreciated. Also, if you wouldn't mind sharing this with your friends and family, because I'm sure they would also like the most up-to-date information on their stimulus checks and unemployment benefits available anywhere on YouTube, which is what I try to provide here on this channel.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is rolling in the tanks. In the latest developments in the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Putin ordered peacekeeping troops into Ukraine, definitely using quotation marks in the peacekeeping there. Now, he ordered the troops into the Ukraine just hours after he formally recognized the independence of two Moscow-backed breakaway regions in the eastern part of the country. Details in this clip right here.
Thank you, Ali. Well, so in the document that President Putin signed at the end of his big speech today, in the same room as the two separatist leaders, that's, I think, a critical detail to keep in mind here. At the very bottom of it is an order for the Russian armed forces to move in and assume peacekeeping operations. So we're just hearing about this now. There was no fanfare on that point during the entire ceremony. This is something people started to notice once the document was actually published. Though we were hearing some signals from Russian lawmakers, for example, that there was like a 100% chance that Russian troops would now go in to assume a peacekeeping role. So now we have it. It's official, and we'll see if they stay in those the claimed borders, the line of contact, if you will, between the Ukrainian military and, the region of Luhansk and Donetsk that the rebels have staked out for 8 years now.
In a televised speech earlier this week, Putin described Ukraine as a historical part of Russia that was illegitimately taken from Moscow and is now by a puppet regime controlled by the US and the West. He said, quote, "Ukraine is not just a neighboring country, they're part of our culture," end quote. And with all these aggressive moves coming from Putin, Biden and other leaders of aligned nations are doing their best to respond with appropriate sanctions. Now, while Putin was on the mic, Biden was on the phone with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and later held a call with French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. President Biden signed an executive order blocking new U.S. investment, trade, and financing from flowing into two Russian separatist-held regions in the Ukraine. It'll provide authority to impose sanctions on any person determined to operate in those areas of the Ukraine. President Biden told reporters that he believed Putin had made up his mind on invading in the Ukraine. The U.S. estimates that Russia has as many as 190,000 troops in and around the Ukraine. President Biden also agreed to a meeting with Putin in principle as long as Russia does not launch an invasion. Now, it's unclear whether that meeting could actually still occur. The Ukraine Union has also said that it would impose sanctions on those involved in the recognition of these regions as independent. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, he added to, quote, "I can assure you that at the moment that other countries put in place strong and severe sanctions on Russia, we will be in lockstep with them and will be moving just as quickly," end quote. Americans in the Ukraine are advised to leave Ukraine immediately. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, he said, quote, "The security situation in Ukraine continues to be unpredictable throughout the country and may deteriorate with little notice. There is a strong likelihood that any Russian military operations would severely restrict commercial air travel. Russian troops have continued to move closer to the border in what looks like plans for an invasion at any moment," end quote. Now, they already announced in a statement that State Department personnel currently in the Ukraine city of Lviv, quote, "will spend the night in Poland. Our personnel will regularly return to continue their diplomatic work in the Ukraine and provide emergency consular service. They will continue to support the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian government coordinating on diplomatic efforts." Stay safe out there, you guys. Back home, all this global uncertainty is further stressing out our gas prices, not to mention heating up inflation in the process too. Senator Joe Manchin, he confirmed that the White House is finally acknowledging inflation as a major concern. Like I said before, the Fed was wrong. Coming from the meeting with White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain, Manchin said, quote, "The White House has made that very clear. They made it very clear that inflation and costs are a burden on the people," end quote. In a recent clip, Manchin called inflation a tax.
This inflation is real. It's harming people. It's 7.5%. That's a tax. And it continues to increase. It's not decreasing. So the feds have to step up to the plate and do something. The administration has to do. We all have to work together right now to get our financial house in order. If not, it's going to be absolutely horrible what it's going to do to the American economy. This is not a time to be throwing more fuel on the fire. We have inflation, and we have basically an economy that's on fire. You don't throw more fuel on the fire that's already on fire, causing the problems that we have. So we've got to get our house in order.
Yep, we've definitely heard inflation being called a tax on the poor, since it's really the low-income workers who get hit the hardest by gas, food, and rent, while the rich have their investments and portfolios to lean on. Even the solution hurts the poor. Hiking interest rates, making borrowing costs more difficult. That means higher mortgages, assuming you have an adjustable rate mortgage. Auto loans are going to be higher. Business loans are higher. Student loans for the low income, and higher savings, interest, and bonds for the rich. Not to say that you have to be rich to have a savings account or bonds, but that's generally the way it's looked at. And hold on to your seats, guys, because federal governor Michelle Bowman just opened the door to larger rate hikes coming this March. She said that she will be, quote, watching the data closely to judge the appropriate size of an increase, end quote. Translation, they may make this rate hike larger than originally planned. In her words, quote, my intent would be to take full forceful action to help reduce inflation, bringing it back toward our 2% goal, while keeping the economy on track to continue creating jobs and economic opportunity for Americans, end quote. Now, the Fed usually hikes or cuts interest rates in 0.25% increments, but some investors expect that banks will raise interest rates by 0.5 percentage points in March. That's definitely going to do a number on our loans and our mortgages. The White House is still pushing for that Build Back Better bill. In a recent White House statement, they called it the most significant effort to bring down costs and strengthen the middle class and generations. But let me read a part of it for you guys. In addition to major investments in children and care, climate, and health, the framework includes targeted investments that will help lower the cost families pay right away. For example, Build Back Better will lower the cost of healthcare, childcare, and prescription drugs, and provide free preschool for all 3 and 4-year-olds. These investments are paid for and will increase our economy's capacity over time by getting more people working and lowering costs families struggle with. President Biden is focused on working with Congress to enact these proposals as quickly as possible. Now, the latest that we heard, Democrats are looking to sweeten the deal for Manchin to finally get involved. Now, Manchin has signaled that he could get on board a plan that cuts the federal deficit. Now, he told reporters, quote, that's the purpose that we have in this. We have to basically get our financial house in order. That's the whole purpose of reconciliation, quote. So that means Democrats could sweeten the deal for Manchin by reshaping part of their plan into a deficit-cutting package. However, that presents a fresh challenge for Democrats to surmount. Now, according to Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, quote, I think that may shape what makes the final cut, and the items that really have cost reduction capacity on the things that really hit people's pocketbooks are probably going to rise to the top of the to-do list, end quote. That means stimulus like childcare, health insurance, Medicare, and lowering prescription drug prices. Yep, definitely some exciting stuff there, guys. Good news for our community members over in Forsyth County, Georgia. Lots of stimulus coming your way. Thanks to what they're calling robust consumer spending from the previous stimulus checks combined with the money that they got from the American Rescue Plan, the county approved a boatload of stimulus measures for their residents and small businesses. The county spent some of that one-time money on employee bonuses for those workers whose jobs put them on the front lines of keeping county services to the public going during the pandemic. The highest bonuses were paid to workers in a healthcare setting who were involved in the pandemic testing, treatment, vaccinations, and the like. These employees were eligible for $3,000 last December, with another $3,000 coming this fall. The city of Winston-Salem, part of Forsyth County, they used their money to pay bonuses out to the frontline workers as well. The city spent $1.5 million last fall to pay $500 to each eligible employee, defined as those who had to work on site at least 50% of the time. Now, apart from that, they invested $1 million each in 3 different categories of small grants for pandemic-related recovery: travel and tourism, hospitality, and arts nonprofits to offset decreased revenue owing to the pandemic, social service organizations to give relief to economic harm resulting from the pandemic, and small business assistance grants with a priority to such businesses in low-income parts of the city. Residents of Winston-Salem, listen up. That part about relief to economic harm, that's basically fancy talk for stimulus coming to you if you apply to the right places. So make sure you look up the pandemic resources in your city, either by visiting their website or calling them up. Should be pretty easy to find their contact information online. Let me know how it goes. Now, zooming back out again, we're not quite done with the stimulus flowing out of the great state of Georgia. The same information we got also details where the American Rescue money went in Forsyth. Some very interesting ones here. Almost $836,000 to Financial Pathways of Piedmont Incorporated for providing mortgage assistance to residents outside Winston-Salem who are unable to pay their mortgages due to pandemic-related hardships. $500,000 for down payments on property to house a child care center for 101 children. $500,000 to build an expanded adult daycare center. $300,000 to the Shepherd Center of Greater Winston-Salem Incorporated for transportation of medical appointments for other needs among older adults. $35,000 for homeless housing programs in which veterans receive mentoring to develop carpentry and construction skills, $32,000 for nutrition and assistance programs for hospice patients, about $30,000 for an entrepreneurial program to help minority-led startups. Like I've been saying and what other channels have been consistently missing out on, there is stimulus available for the people. You guys have to know where to look for it. Now, another one's in the city of Sacramento, California. Sacramento Mayor Darrell Steinberg, he proposed a pilot stimulus program of stimulus checks for local artists. Now, he said, quote, "Many artists struggle to get by financially, and a small infusion of funds could help them with the ability to focus on their work without fear," end quote. If approved, the program would offer monthly income to artists to compensate them for financial losses during the pandemic. Right now, Sacramento is doing a survey of local artists to get help in deciding the details of the program, including how the money should be distributed. Now, after the program is approved, the eligible artists could get the money by this fall. New York City also outlined a very similar plan last year to use almost $6 billion of pandemic-related recovery funds to support artists, taxi drivers, and the homeless. Now, under the plan, about 1,800 local artists who suffered financially during the pandemic got $5,000 in stimulus checks. So shout out if you guys are from any of these cities that we mentioned today. And if you're not, don't worry, I got you guys. I'll be sure to keep my eyes open and my ear to the ground on the horizon. So I'll make sure that you guys don't miss out on any of the juiciest stimulus that is available to you, whether it's federal or local. All you gotta do is hit that subscribe button now and tap that notification bell.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to ping pong back to Mem here for a second, so you stand by. Now, Mem, if in fact Putin does put these peacekeeping, let me say quote unquote, right, peacekeeping troops in these regions, what does that trigger as far as the U.S. response and the response from our allies overseas?
Well, this has been the main question, right? Because one person's peacekeeper is another person's invasion. And we have been very careful with our language as we've been asking questions to the White House, and they've been very careful with theirs. What constitutes an invasion? And Russian troops crossing into Ukraine territory has been the line that they've drawn. And so we've already seen a version of what could be coming in terms of a more forceful response from this White House in simply reacting earlier today to the designation of these territories as independent by the Russian president. You saw within very close time period the White House issue a statement saying that sanctions are coming, and you also saw the head of the European Union saying sanctions will be coming, and that is separate and apart from the larger sanctions package that the West has been threatening throughout this process. So White House officials are briefing reporters at this very moment, and so you can expect when we're able to share more of what those officials are saying, we might have even more to say about how they're viewing this next step. But we also just got in the last, literally, this is one of those days, Hallie, where we're looking up and down at our phones as we're talking to you. The White House just issued a readout of the president's phone calls with the German chancellor and the French president, making it clear that those conversations are ongoing. And I'll read from part of it. As they say in the statement, independent is in quotes. They discuss how they will continue to coordinate their next steps.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. A like and a comment are always appreciated. Also, if you wouldn't mind sharing this with your friends and family, because I'm sure they would also like the most up-to-date information on their stimulus checks and unemployment benefits available anywhere on YouTube. Have a good one.